Welcome to the Manufacturing Matters podcast with the Council of Industry. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, interviews, and insights from across the Hudson Valley that will revolutionize the way you think about manufacturing. This podcast is proudly sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, a leading accounting and advisory firm dedicated to helping businesses thrive in the manufacturing sector. With their industry knowledge and strategic guidance, PKF O'Connor Davies ensures that manufacturers have the financial insights and support they need to achieve success.
Dr. Jonah Schenker, welcome back to the Council of Industry podcast.
It's awesome to be here. I mean, I get the good pleasure of being able to see you both.
It has been a while. And actually, I think this is the first time we'll have a chance to have an extended conversation in a long time. So we're looking forward to it.
Yes, glad to be with you.
Thanks. So we did speak with you about 5 years ago when you were in a different role with Ulster BOCES. But if you could, I think for the listeners, give us a BOCES 101. Now you're district superintendent. Give us an overview of what BOCES is and the role it plays in communities.
Sure, absolutely. So yes, I'm the district superintendent at Ulster BOCES. District superintendent has kind of dual roles. So the CEO of the BOCES and our BOCES and the 37 BOCES around the state have provide direct student services. So we have schools. We provide alternative education, early college, high schools, and P-Tech programs, career and technical education, adult education, special education, therapeutic programs, and the list goes on in terms of that type of direct student programming. And then we also have a large arm that handles professional learning. So the professional learning that the districts are needing, we provide that. We do technical services, technology, both kind of infrastructure and purchasing support. And some of the BOCES have a regional information center. We're one of those BOCES. And so our Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center provides support to the 4-county region here in the Hudson Valley. So Ulster, Orange, Dutchess, and Sullivan County. And that's all of the kind of infrastructure and internet service and related services to that. So complex organizations. So overseeing that one side of the role, and then we're an arm of the state. So as district superintendent, I'm a direct report to the commissioner. And we meet with the other district superintendents to think about, it's kind of a two-way channel. So we're bringing work from state to the field, and we're bringing perspective from the field back up to the State Department to make sure that a voice is heard from the field as they're thinking about change and transformation, initiatives, policy, things of that nature. So that's kind of that's my role and the workings of this BOCES. But BOCES 1948 were established as an act of the legislature, and initially really intended to help rural small schools expand their educational opportunities and share resources more economically. And over time, I've really grown to be a cornerstone in the 37 regions to really ensure that when we're thinking about how can we ensure schools and most importantly students have access to more and better, the districts have a mechanism that's incentivized through the state. Very unique situation in New York. There are other counties and states that have educational service agencies, but do not have the same robust economic incentive to actually think beyond their borders and share. And so kind of close it out with kind of just a real 101 on the formula. Every one of the BOCES regions or school districts has an aid ratio. We won't get into that here, or we won't get to anything else, but the average kind of aid ratio in Ulster County is about 60%. And so when districts share, 2 or more districts share services to be more efficient and thinking economically, they are incentivized to do so, and they receive back the BOCES aidable portions of that service in the form of state aid the following year. So there is a program, they can't offer it alone. 2 or 3 districts come together. We can offer it in partnership with them. It's $10,000. That's the true cost. But the districts get back 6,000 of that. I'm sorry, 6,000 of that 10 in the form of state aid the following year. So it really is a wonderful opportunity again to ensure that that cost doesn't prohibit access and programming.
So I neglected to mention that our CEO, Johnny Ann Hansen, is with us on this podcast. When we dove in, we had been speaking off camera beforehand. So welcome, Johnny Ann, to the conversation, of course. So Jonah, the rateable, one of those things that I think most of our members and manufacturers are most familiar with is the CTE program, the Career and Technical Education program. And that's part of the rateable program as well.
Yeah, so there are portions of the tuition. So BOCES do not have any mechanism like a regular school district who, looks at all of their aid and their funding, and then there's a difference between the cost of that and what it costs to operate a school, and that's what they put out to the public for them to vote on in the form of a school budget. And if the community is so inclined, they vote on it, and the district has X money to do the work over the year. We don't have any taxing authority, so all of our work is based on purchase services, individual, what we call COSERs. So career and technical education is a COSER. Districts subscribe to it. They send students, they pay tuition, and then a portion of that goes back to them to incentivize, so that we don't have 8 districts trying to do career and tech in an inefficient and non-economic way.
I guess my what I'd like our listeners to know is how truly exciting and innovative Ulster BOCES has been through the years, and it feels like the structure allows a little bit of that experimentation or trying new things, but you seem to have taken that in your leadership to maybe the next level.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that acknowledgement. I have been deeply passionate about in all of my roles throughout my career about thinking about are we doing it right? What are we doing right? Let's hold on to that. What ought we not be doing anymore and need to let go? And where's the opportunity to design new? And so I do believe that we think kind of future focused about what does teaching and learning really need to look like, and then and I believe there's a shift in general that needs to happen, and then we can begin to look at like, what does this look like in a career and technical education center? What does this look like in a special education classroom with nonverbal first graders? And we can go on the list for these kind of different kind of areas where we can explore that. I think the point that you made up about kind of this permission to think differently, you are absolutely right. Our students come to us half day, full day replacement. They're placed here. So by nature, coming to Ulster BOCES or coming to a BOCES is already an alternative to, again, what might be the norm or in a comprehensive school district. And so we're given a little bit of permission to think about, well, it should look different if we need to augment or add to an experience, or someone needs a different experience, So that's kind of built in there. So we do have a little bit of the luxury to be that kind of think tank or petri dish to kind of drive innovation. I do believe that collectively we need to be looking at how we do school, whether it is at a BOCES or in a component district or traditional, for lack of a better word, school. We still have strong legacy practices that are tied to an industrial model of schooling, which was designed really well for that period of time, but we're not in that period of time. So we get to help those districts think about what's that path forward. And I always, when talking about this, just want to note that Um, we have amazing schools and teachers and staff doing amazing things. And I always go on record to say I don't believe we have an educator problem. We have wonderful educators. We have a container issue. That is, the container in
Mhm.
which we ask them to do their job is
Mhm.
outdated and flawed. It promotes kind of single pathway of success that leads to 4 year of college, and the other things that kind of surround that and touch it have been deemed, um, not as good.
Mm.
And that gets into your kind of, I think, initial conversation about like history of BOCES, right? Like there's a stigma, an age-old stigma around career and technical education, vocational education, as it was
Mhm.
titled. And so not just shifting the things that we're doing in schools, but the perceptions of what it means to be successful, whether, in post-secondary, whether it's into 2 year, into 4 year, into military, into credit, a certification program directly into the workforce, apprenticeship, and we can go down on the list. They all have to be valued as wonderful pathways, and our schools need to have create the experiences that elevate all of those pathways as success.
I'll jump in here for a second. I'm curious a little bit of maybe some of those examples. So when you give that example about if you were to do this in 2025, if you were to start now and you didn't pull over the legacy or the legacy container, what would you do and how would you do it? And I know it's not that simple, but do you have a couple of examples? Because I think the people that we deal with, the manufacturers that we deal with, that's how they're thinking all the time, right? Because they have to keep up with the product, with the demand. And what are some examples of that you're seeing?
Yeah, so and I think that's a good question, right? Because there's a difference between new school startup
Mm-hmm,
and school transformation.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
moving the ways of knowing of career and technical education forward, um, is a different body of work than opening a school that's built on a set of values, and hiring folks where you're able to, have those conversations like this is what the school's going to be about. Do you align with that? Right. So that's two totally separate, different works. Fortunately, I get to do all of it at the same time. I've had the
Yeah,
opportunity and while not in 2025, but and Harold, you were there at the inception of P-Tech. That was a great example of being able to build a school around a set of values aimed at a focus and begin those shifts from day one.
yeah,
Our current career and technical education centers, our current special education centers, we have folks who have been here longer than I have. So moving them to help understand why those changes need to happen, what those changes are, and most importantly, like so that they can connect and feel a sense of purpose and ownership in the work. So I'll take the P-Tech example to kind of elevate, I think, some of the examples, Johnny, and that you called for, because much of what we're doing today are based on that experience that I got to have.
yeah,
Group of teachers hired in to co-create the most ideal situation. It wasn't my school, it was our school. And
right.
they were in it because they designed it and they protected it and they believed in it. Um and I think the recipe is pretty simple. It starts with centering students and relationships. I mean, even if this
Mhm.
is going to be about economic and workforce development, we know
Sure.
that right students need to feel seen, heard, valued.
Yeah.
And so building in community structures, the human side, which we
Hmm.
have over the years, has been extracted not necessarily from the individuals in schools, but from the system and structure
Hmm.
itself.
Sure.
I think there's a couple of other things that become really important. Understanding content, information, curriculum in and access to that in this current environment, right?
Mm.
Teachers are no longer the primary source of information. They can
Right.
be one of them, but there are others, right?
Yeah.
Technology greatly has shaped and will continue to shape in an exponential way how folks are connected, how they access, what the world of work and social infrastructures look like. I also always make a disclaimer, the most powerful technology in the classroom is the human interaction. We have these amazing tools at our disposal to augment processes. So there's that shift. Moving in that kind of informational to looking at I think the real drivers of what learning is about, and it's about creating experiences, authentic experiences, where students are working not for compliance or a number scale, but to be of service to community and world. And we talk about that as it relates to some of Ron Berger's work, which is hierarchy of audience. So I have a group of students that are working on something for me as teacher regarding compliance and grade, low level of engagement. I bring in outside partners to propose a real world challenge. They're going to work on it. They're going to produce, they're going to iterate, they're going to design, they're going to fail, all of those things. They present it back to those people, those experts for feedback and to be of value, highest point of engagement. And that's true whether, again, we're talking about technical or traditional educational shifts. And that's really rooted, I think, those are the foundations here at Ulster BOCES that have become a model under what we call our North Star. And our North Star is about all learners, adults and students, being able to show up and foster their unique self, how those unique selves come together to form community. Once we have that community and relational stock, we can talk about building capacity, and we do that through continuous cycles of inquiry and revision and learning. As I have had the opportunity to work over the last decade plus closely with industry folks, it's not too far off, right? Like community and connectedness and culture matters. Being learners and not stagnant in the workforce matters. Being able to innovate and learn and grow. And so I think there's this like mystification of like this skill set for college, this skill set for work. I believe we've got one set of skill set we need to be building for all students. And then we just need to be connectors to all of the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think those skills that you said are going to be exactly what employers are looking for. And that's what employers need to do now is figure out how they create the best culture that gets the best out of a new worker and gets them to stay and grow and do all those same things. So I think you're absolutely right that it is all interconnected as part of being a part of a bigger community. I did have a question when you talked about the one skill set. I was wondering if in that the disagreeers, not that there's anyone who would disagree with you personally, Jonah, but the people who are going to say the problem with that is, are you watering down their academic capabilities because you're so person-centric and you're so student-centric? And I know from your numbers and your details and your presentations, I know that not to be true, but could you articulate the answer to that? Like, what happens if nobody knows how to count anymore?
Right. And I am certainly not making the case that content knowledge and information needs to be left behind.
Right.
At all. I am certainly not an advocate that just because we carry around these computers in our pockets that we call phones.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, they're computers with a phone app. But that replaces the need for humans to have a context of history, to understand science and math. Not at all. That's not a either or.
Right.
I'm really talking about how students are making more meaningful connections to that content. And also in this current age, really being able to distill what's real information and what's not. And again, we don't have to go there, but that's not just a student problem. We know
absolutely.
That's all our problems. Absolutely.
Upskilling in that area as well. But sourcing information is just going to be this incredibly important skill as the information consumption channels are vast and nonstop. I mean, you don't wait till the morning to read the paper. I mean, it's in every feed and so you're surrounded by this information, not only surrounded by the information, but it's also driven by what you consume. It's just like catered to a particular set of values. And in that, again, this is not a political statement because it spans the whole arc. There's a lot of garbage and falsity that just
Yeah.
isn't true across the board. So
Yeah.
it's going to be even more critical to again do that. And I talk about often in this movement a little bit of a kind of personal experience as before I moved along my journey and decided that school leader and leadership, this direction, this is the direction I was going to go. I studied furniture design and metalworking. And I've always been kind of carpenter by passion. I build things instead of playing golf. Maybe that'll change at some point. But I had a professor, and when I walked in the shop in college, had the most beautiful technology that you would want to see in a woodworking studio. And the first semester, we had to stare at it and not turn it on. We had to hand cut dovetails to learn about how the wood reacts and moves. The same experience in my photography class. These beautiful digital, editing programs, but we're going to stand in a dark room and learn how to fan and what the impact on that and developing would be. So again, it's not an either or, right? Like understanding the art and the history of where it came from in appreciation of the advancement of technology is that same kind of art, right? I just think it's where the information and technology and the content gets inserted. Right? Like having these beautiful experiences, getting excited, understanding passions, and then let's do the research, let's do the reading, let's understand the history. And I'm really excited about it at that point, right? So it's part of the learning arc and the shift of information for information's sake. And there is a body, as you pointed out, there's a body of content and knowing around numeracy and science that like we all have a responsibility to understand that, to be able to navigate the world and be a human that can interact with other humans in the appropriate ways.
Yeah, I think your opening to that too was about the most important thing being those relationships, whether it's the relationship with the people in the classroom, the student to teacher relationship, the student to student relationship, or the relationship to the content and how it connects to the bigger world. I think Harold was going to ask a little bit about your container situation and more specifically just your innovation in terms of spacing.
Yeah, definitely want to do that. But actually, I also want to comment on it. It's interesting to hear a lot of what you're talking about is kind of core to like a liberal arts education, and and it's really interesting to see how that is being pushed down, and not inconsequentially, but being pushed down into even a CTE program where I think, that's been lost in the past. It's really important that they have an understanding of even if it's just a trade, he says with his air quotes, you really are better at it when you have that context and knowledge and wisdom. And I think it's really fascinating to hear, and I think it's really important for the future workforce and future society. And it's exciting to hear that being unfolded.
Yeah, and before we shift into some of the kind of programming shifts that are happening here, I think this is a good place. We were talking a little bit kind of prior to jumping on. There are significant changes happening to the educational landscape in New York. We are moving from this kind of planning phase into phase one of what New York State is calling New York Inspires. And it is a revision of what it means to be a graduate in New York. And there are kind of four large transformations. One is the adoption of a portrait of a graduate. And in that portrait, academically prepared, creative innovation, critical thinking, effective communication, global citizenship, and reflective and future focused. So the state is saying, yes, and previously, right, like 22 credits and 5 Regents exams was the criteria, like you're leaving to go to a job interview, and you're a New York graduate. Well, I've got, and again, I'm glossing
Yeah.
over this, but I have 22 credits in 5 Regents exams. Okay, like, so what does that mean? Now we're
Mhm.
explicitly saying it's going to be critical for all graduates to possess these skills. This isn't about just college or 2 year or 4 year or directly into the workforce or military. Like this is that side, I think, Harold, that you're talking about, which is these are human assets that are
Mhm.
going to be required to interact in the workforce, in the college space, as a community member. So it's really, really exciting. Those are all centered around the culturally responsive sustaining education framework, which is about access for all, that all of our students in New York need to have access to all these opportunities. The other 3 transformations are reimagining credits and learning experiences. That really leans into those shifts that I was talking about. The other is the decoupling of the Regents assessments to graduation requirements. So they will still be here. Some students may choose to show their proficiency with the Regents exams or a combination of Regents exams and other things. This is a really awesome opportunity that places value in a student who's a senior who's out in capstone or an internship, working with an industry partner 5 days a week.
Right.
We're not going to give them credit for that. And now there's going to be these mechanisms to do that. Really, really exciting. And lastly, moving towards a single diploma so that all New Yorkers, graduates, regardless of the pathways, regardless of how they show competency, expertise against standards and this portrait, will move towards this kind of high level. And Johnny Ann, if you mentioned before, whether it's naysayers or whatever, are we watering it down? No. I mean, the other, if you've had the opportunity, I've been fortunate to travel around this country, around the world, to visit schools that are really, really doing this work. They are exceeding
Yeah.
our parameters where that's low-lying fruit. Like, give me these experiences and these environments for students. I'll sit them for any Regents exams tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, and so no, it's not. I think it's about raising the bar, but also leveling the field about how you can get there, how you can show it, and not just in school. What about, I think often too about my niece. She's graduating from high school. She just finished competing in London and in Germany in the world tournament. She's a
Yeah.
martial artist who leaves school, teaches 2 hours a day, trains 3 to 4 hours a day, goes home and does her homework, and knows she can't get a PE credit for that.
Right.
But like we got to
Yeah.
start thinking more broadly here. You could go to an Eagle Scout, you could go to community service, right? Like the spectrum across the board. So we're going to have that opportunity to really look at what does it mean to be a learner, and how do we measure that? Super exciting stuff. And in that last piece, career and technical education is being centered, not as an option, but a requirement, not for everybody to go to career and technical school, but to
Right.
have those like experiences, because guess what? They're relevant for those who are going to go to college too. They're
Absolutely.
fostering these dispositions. So I'm just, we've been talking this for a while. These changes we've known for a while. I'm excited that the state is acknowledging, moving, naming it, branding it, so that we can move New York State forward collectively.
That's great.
So you have a new container.
Yes, literally.
Hopefully going to be starting and be ready to open in the fall. Let's talk about the new building. How it came to be, what it's going to be, and how it's going to be fostering all of what you've been talking about for the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. So the container is usually a metaphor. This is a
I
legitimate
appreciate
new
that.
container. And this is just so everybody knows, this is a real container that's taking a lot of
Bricks and
time.
mortar, yeah.
Yes. Super exciting. The timeline is aggressive. We'll get there. Um, what opening means in September is going to be different than perhaps what individuals might be used to as they walk into September and seeing the floors polished and the desks set up and everything like that. But equally exciting, actually, there's a silver lining to the timeline first, which is I think often we over design and make assumptions about what are going to be. And because we're going to get to a place which is safe and compliant, and we've got we've got all of the things needed to get humans inside of a space. We're going to have to look at the first quarter and half of the year as co-designing with our industry partners, with our teachers, with our staff, our students, our communities to think about and it's a project, right? Like let's build out the spaces. And as I think about like job readiness, life readiness, like going in and co-creating and building space that's going to be relevant, like, there isn't an employer that doesn't have to deal with setting up a new shop or bringing in new equipment and having those conversations. So we're going to make that a learning experience, which is excited. And it's not just me coming up with the story to be able to sell that. Like I am really excited about where we are in the process. iPark 87, former IBM site in Kingston, New York, has had a number of attempts to revive and jumpstart it. It's got a bit of a legacy of failure as we remember IBM departing and jobs leaving the area. So it's a lot larger than what will be just the ribbon cutting for a school. I really do believe we're going to be breathing kind of breath back into this facility that has the opportunity to be around community revival and purpose. And it represents so many things. I think Harold, you and I and Johnny Ann, we have talked about, right? Like the interconnectedness of entities that have historically had difficulty pulling in the same direction. County, economic, workforce, government, K-12 schools, 2-year schools, 4-year schools, economic workforce development boards, and the web continues. And again, I would suggest that the same metaphor is true. Amazing people across all of those entities working really hard, just maybe not efficiently and pulling in the same direction. A lot of duplication. I can't remember how many different workforce development meetings I've gone to, held by different people, all good outcomes, and the product doesn't always hit the mark, or why I don't have a lot of people showed up, so as we think about our footprint there, economic and workforce development for the county, thinking forward, hopefully with our 2- and 4-year colleges coming proximate to campus, some industry moving on campus, it becomes this ecosystem, not to exclusively only handle what's on campus, but I think as a physical footprint to represent something new and different, where it's not a BOCES thing, but we can hold the space. Inherent in what we do is coordination. It's about efficiency, and we've got some good structures in place that we've co-created together, the three of us, that are working, that are scalable. So let's not renew it. And I keep talking about this as we just want to host a dinner party. We'll set, we'll set the table, and guess what? The doors are open, but everybody should come because we're actually having the same conversation. So let's expand that model that we talked about in PTech and get everybody at the table at the same time in a cadence that's sustainable. So that's not really about the building itself. I'll pause there. It's more about the infrastructure. And I think as we look at what this opportunity will present is in September, for over 1,400 juniors and seniors being able to stand in front of this facility and say, hey, Hudson Valley and beyond, we're your future workforce.
Mhm.
We're being trained not by just what the school thinks, but informed by actual conversations with industry partners. We're ready to go. Come hire us. Come move your businesses here. And again, adults can stand up and say all they want, but and sometimes people listen, but when our students are saying that, I think that's a really powerful shift.
Yeah, I mean, the building almost it feels like it's a almost a metaphor for everything you've been trying to do, and all that interconnectedness. You did just mention the P-TECH model and pushing that out. We have really enjoyed seeing that flourish. From those days where it was touch and go, whether it was going to be successful or not, and actually, going to even survive a year, to it flourishing, and you see, the development of those kids, the relationships that are built with the industry partners, with the educators, with the students. It's really great. And then now to see that, as Johnny Ann and I are able to do, to see that get pushed into the other programs at BOCES, and being made available to more and more students, to have more and more industry partners engaged. It's great. And iPark 87, BOCES at iPark 87, whatever you're going to call it, is going to just facilitate that. It's going to make
Yeah.
it easier. It's going to accelerate it, and that is truly exciting.
Yeah, so the career academies at iPark
Yeah.
87, the Ulster BOCES career academies at iPark 87, um, you know, that that kind of model that you talked about, and I really like, you kind of looking at like this physical plan as the metaphor for all of these conversations that we've been having for a decade. And that really captures it. And I want to be sure this that I continue to say, we're not trying to do the work of the 2-year community college. We're not trying to do the work of the 4-year community
Uh,
college. We're not trying to do the work of the economic and workforce development branch of the government. I do believe that one of the flaws of the how we think about economic and workforce development, or the solves around that, is it's been an adult conversation. And I deeply believe that until we center the 20,000 students and their family as the
Mhm.
future of work, right? I talk about, like, we've done economic and workforce development if it was a tree, but we're trying to grow the tree 30 feet up in the air. We haven't tended to the roots. And when where do we shift perceptions about going into the workforce as a viable pathway? It doesn't happen at 21. It happens in
Right.
middle schools and conversations on soccer break. And and it's really not a BOCES thing. We just can be the conduit to make it
yeah.
really easy for these other entities to have access and connectivity to this K-12 world, which are the roots, which is exciting. I mean, I have this dream of, if done right, this cohesive net. Any parent, any child can look at a map of the infrastructure of Ulster County or the Hudson Valley and not have to navigate 6 different systems to figure out what's going on. Like, you start here and it goes here, and these people talk on behalf
Mhm.
of kids, right? Adult egos out of the way. And and if we could do this, these opportunities, I would love it that every single student that graduates has an acceptance into a 2-year college and a 4-year SUNY, regardless of that's what
Right.
they want to do, just part of their opportunity profile. And in that same profile, the 10 internships they've done, the projects they've worked on, opportunities for military, whatever it is. But we've got to, if we want to shift those perceptions, we've got to be working together and kind of tying it back to where you started. I think this revival presents an opportunity in a new place, to go at it in a fresh way.
That's great. The thing I always appreciate about the work that you're doing and the partners that you bring to the table is the integration, just the integration at the highest level, integration at the student level, and everything in between. It's always fun to hear
Right.
your stories and to cheer for your vision and to see it all
Yeah,
come together.
It's, I go and I see these new maps of like structures for like how we're gonna, and I said, well, we've got this system with steering committees. We're placing, 350 students out in paid internships. I mean, this year alone, our students were earning $17,000 a week in paid internships.
Right,
Wow.
it's amazing.
So we don't need a new structure. Just come on over and come participate in the structure that is already, like, the calendar is built for next year. Don't create
Yeah.
10 other meetings that are going to be a secret and you forget to invite everybody to.
Right,
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
I,
Follow those best practices.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's really impressive. And yes, one more like comment that I have seen transformative is the engagement from the industry folks, and the joy that they have working
Mhm.
with these students, and their desire to be more engaged, more engaged.
Yeah.
And I think that that is very contagious. And we're seeing that as, I think that's transformative.
Yeah.
Listen, you pointed that out so early on, which is, and not only pointed it out, because of your relationships in P-Tech, it was the 3 or 4 folks that you brought to the table who can envision the larger picture, who were in it for the long game, but really believed in this altruistic way, this contribution, um, and the growth in partners and connectivity come from obviously the work and the students but really come from those folks going out and saying, hey, this is the answer. You got to be there. So I really appreciate. I mean, that was early foresight from you. And again, outside of just, those web or that web of interrelated industry folk and community folk and school folk and beyond, what also happens is, it's not a one and done. It's where we can always hear that, hey, that's awesome, keep working on that. But there's this new technology that's happening
Mhm.
in manufacturing, and we got to begin to talk about how do we get that machinery in kids' hands. Here's the skills we're really looking for, right? That skills mapping is an annual thing because that's the rate of change that industry is dealing with. And so those conversations about what do we really need to see when this future employee walks through the threshold of your door, from a technical, from a human space or disposition, we back map that into our work. And so that conversation doesn't have to happen in 10 different meetings. Let, like,
Mhm.
all the folks, when we're doing back mapping and skills mapping, come together and contribute. And then let's go and do our individual work.
As we wrap up, I'll add one more thing that I feel like I'm channeling my inner Rich Croce here and saying that from a partner perspective, from an employer perspective, I think that the model that you've set up has allowed them to feel that their input is being heard, it's being executed. Even if it isn't being executed, it said, okay, this isn't working for right now. And I think you've managed that relationship really well. And I hope that as these other iterations of this look to this as a model, that continues to be the case, because I think a lot of employers are probably participating in a lot of different committees, but how many of them are really listening and showing those results and listening and showing those results and making sure that their time is also valued? So that
Yeah,
definitely goes to the system.
that's so true. I mean, from the beginning, what I have kept close to, and this stemmed out of conversations with Rich and
Mhm.
Frank, um, which is, industry folks don't always want to and don't have to do school things. School folks don't have to do the industry things.
Right.
But how do we make it really easy for everybody to participate? And how do we minimize the impact? Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, return on investment is important. How do we
Yep.
minimize the impact on industry partners in the work, to have that connective tissue? And no matter what the model is, there's no recipe that says making it easy on industry is having 10 meetings with 10 different people about the same thing. Like, it just doesn't work. So again, let's get the egos out of the way. Let's create that kind of overarching bridge. And as we build out this facility, it's really magical. We're doing just that. So these cluster meetings, our work with Haas Manufacturing. We didn't just go in and design the manufacturing studio. No, Haas is there, helping design the blueprints, Snap-on tool. We can go down the list of our partners who are thinking about what does that really look like, and that's to get it started. And then we'll begin to move out and build and continue all of these clusters. We're also thinking around efficiency is that we actually don't need to have, the old way of career and technical education, 26 different trade areas. And we're really thinking about clusters. And bringing our partners into cluster meetings rather than all the individual. And so we're thinking about transportation. We're thinking about hospitality, and we can go down the line of those. But that's even how we'll be shifting proximity of our lab space. So when you walk in this facility, our building arts and transportation, 50,000 square feet, they're all proximate and connected. Because HVAC and auto need welding and electric, right? So like not so narrow opportunities for these broad skill and disposition, skill upskilling, and then opportunities to do deep dives or expertise walks around particular areas. So it's really, really exciting. I think the space is going to lean into that vision of what a future focused career and tech center should look like. It's also not stagnant. So the shops, the equipment, it's got to be flexible. We got to be able to alter a shop based on a project or emerging technologies. And it's also built to be able to house, in partnership while school is going on, community-based events in partnership. So if Haas wants to hold their national convention, we want that during the day in what we're calling our arena, with our kids doing the catering for that, and their folks seeing future workforce on their machines embedded in this beautiful 20,000 foot arena with state-of-the-art equipment, right? Like that's the dream come true. And also looking at post 2 o'clock, how do we reinvent adult ed, community involvement so that we can keep the lights on in iPark 87, so that really becomes a facility that all community can access as we think about the future.
See, that's what I'm talking about with all the integration. That's honestly, it's amazing. I wish you all the best, and we look forward to all the updates. Harold, any last words?
I was just going to say we'll have to circle back, do a podcast again in 5 more years, and look at the milestones that we've together accomplished. I'm going to consider ourselves one of those minor partners that you have enlisted to make this a success. So
a lot more than minor.
We appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Dr. Jonah Schenker, District Superintendent of Ulster BOCES, thank you very much for being on the Council of Industry podcast.
Thank you both.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Manufacturing Matters, brought to you by the Council of Industry and sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, accountants and advisors who understand the unique challenges and opportunities in the manufacturing sector. We hope you gained valuable insights and inspiration from today's discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.